Hi, Rebecca. Nadia here.
Hello.
Nadia from
Hi.
zenonco.io and Love Heals Cancer. We guide cancer patients on adopting an integrative oncological treatment approach. We help them find the balance between medical treatment and complementary treatment approaches. We help patients with our team of oncologists, lab experts, nutritionists, and other healthcare professionals so that the treatment outcome for the patient is at its best. And as part of this, we also try to get in touch and we reach out and try to connect cancer warriors and patients with each other so that queries are answered, so that people need to know that they need to feel less alone, right? It is one of the best feelings to know that, oh, if she can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it, you know? And as part of this, we have something called as a healing story that we share. And today we have Rebecca here, who's going to share one of her inspirational stories. And I cannot wait to listen to her inspirational journey. I'm pretty sure the viewers are also. So let's just get to it and listen to Rebecca. Right. Over to you, Rebecca.
Wonderful. So just a little bit about me first, I guess. I'm now 31, but I was diagnosed about 3 years ago when I was 28 with invasive ductal carcinoma, which is the most common form of breast cancer, and mine was triple positive, meaning that it had estrogen and progesterone receptors, so it needed hormones to continue to grow, and then it was also HER2 positive, which is just sort of an extra receptor that some cancer cells have that let them. It has to do with protein, and they can basically take in protein faster and grow faster, so it makes it more aggressive. And then my breast cancer was also grade 3, which means it's more aggressive versus less aggressive. The cancer cells are more mutated and less normal. And yeah, I mean, it was a surprise, that's for sure. I was only 28. All of my genetic testing, because of course at that age, they assume that there is a genetic component like BRCA. And all my genetic testing was negative, and I didn't have very many risk factors. I didn't smoke. I drank a little bit, but not excessively. And I now I realize, after years of changing my lifestyle, I realized that I thought I had a pretty healthy lifestyle at the time. I don't think that I did now, but I wasn't terrible. I wasn't eating fast food every day or anything like that. And I was exercising a couple times a week. There was more I could have done, but I was only 28. So I was like, I'm fine. I'm young. And that's just a handy excuse that we have when we're young to fall back on, is that, we'll be fine. Illness is for, the elderly, not for us. So yeah, it was a surprise, to say the least. Yeah. So after that, we just sort of moved through the steps and the stages, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I did choose to take an integrative approach. So I did, things from the conventional world, but also a lot from the alternative world, and in terms of like lifestyle changes and things like that as well. So I'm sure we'll get into those too. But yeah, it was quite a journey, quite an experience, that is for sure, life-changing.
And here we are. This conversation telling the world exactly what Rebecca went through. I mean, if you were to tell me about your treatment, how exactly would you put it?
Yeah, so I mean, it started off pretty, as it does for most people, I think. We started with, so I was just really, really lucky when I found it. That I found it when I did. It was still stage 1, so the tumor was just over a centimeter, and so we decided to do surgery first. And because it was quite small. So I did a lympectomy and an axillary node removal. So they removed some of the lymph nodes that are closest to the tumor, just to try to determine whether it's spread at all. And luckily my margins were all very good. They got really clean margins and all of my lymph nodes were negative. So that was really great. And I think that gave me a lot of confidence going forward in accepting some conventional treatment, but not accepting all of it. It's just what sort of felt right to me. And I knew pretty much right away, I knew that I was going to take an integrative approach. My mom has always been interested in natural medicine, alternative medicine. And, we had a normal family doctor, regular family doctor, but we would go to see a naturopath sometimes, or an allergist or chiropractor, that kind of thing. So some of the healthcare professionals that are usually associated sort of with the alternative health world. So, and she would always have sort of, like when we got a cold, there was, a regimen of supplements she would give us, and, oregano oil and stuff like that. And actually some things now that are quite common to take when you get a cold, but, back in the early 90s that, that wasn't a thing people did that much. So, so she was always very interested in it. And so I suppose I was interested, but at least I had no biases towards natural medicine, as some people do. They think it's hokum or quackery or whatever. So I didn't have any of those biases, and I was pretty sure that there had to be something else out there in addition to conventional stuff that I could be doing. And I'm a teacher, and I love learning, and so my reaction to any problem, big or small, is just to start researching, and I'm quite good at it, and I like learning and I like researching. So I just started reading everything I could find, watching everything I could find, talking. I think at one point I had, and so I got as many opinions as I could find, I just started learning as much as I could to sort of inform all of my decisions. So what I ultimately decided for me was the right thing. I really wanted to get Herceptin, which is a drug that blocks that HER2 receptor that I mentioned. And it's been very, very effective for people who have that HER2 positive receptor. But here in Canada, you can't, because of our universal healthcare system, to get a treatment, especially when it comes to something like cancer, your conditions have to match the same conditions that they did for that, whatever that drug is. Otherwise, the government won't pay for the treatment. Our health plan won't pay for the treatment. So, and you have to have had some chemo, either a full course or as much as you could, in order to match the conditions of the study. Because of course, the studies were all done with people who had received chemo as well. So I was really struggling with that because I really wanted to get Herceptin, but I had the right path for me. I felt like it was overkill because my margins were all clean and I had no all negative. And when I really broke down the percentages they gave me, chemo was only going to reduce my risk of recurrence. And so for me, having a 1.8% reduction was not worth all of the potential side effects that come along with it, especially since I'm young. Side effects from radiation and chemo tend to crop up or get worse or appear as you get older, the longer you live, especially radiation. And since I plan on having many, many decades to live, that was something I was really, really focusing on. If I was 70, I wouldn't worry about it. But because I was so young, I was really concerned about it, about my long-term health. So the 1.8% was not worth it for me. And because I was doing so much alternatively, I felt like I was going to get at least that much of a reduction with all of the stuff I was doing from the alternative world. So I know every percent reduction that they can get, and that's totally fine. That's everybody's choice. But for me, it just didn't feel worth it. And it just didn't feel, there was a guy was telling me that it wasn't the right thing. So what I did, a friend of mine said, a friend who was a doctor who inadvertently gave me the idea. He was trying to convince me to do chemo. But I said, why can't I get just Herceptin? Why do I have to have chemo first? And so he explained the trial and how it has to match. And he said, sometimes if we know someone won't tolerate chemo well, they're very old, or they have other health issues, heart issues, and we know that they just won't tolerate it well, we'll give them one round of chemo, and then we can say, yes, they've had some. She was like, well, then why don't you just do one round and then say that you don't want to do any more, and then you can do Herceptin. And I thought, actually, that's a really good idea. So, so I did one round of AC chemo, which is sometimes called the Red Devil because it's really awful. And one round was enough. I lost all my hair. I was, as sick as I have ever been for 2 weeks. I don't know how people get through, 8 rounds of that. I don't know if I would have made it. It was really, truly awful. And I started Herceptin now for a year. And then I refused radiation because, again, they were like, it's just in case there's anything there left in the area. But the report that I had really good margins. I knew my lymph nodes were clear. So I knew there was a chance that there could be microscopic disease in the area. But again, I knew I was doing so much in terms of alternative treatments. And I was doing the Herceptin, which gave me a lot of confidence. And I also was taking tamoxifen, which is an estrogen receptor. It blocks the estrogen receptors in your body. So I was really confident that with the other stuff I was doing that I didn't need to do the radiation. And again, radiation is one of those things that every 10 years after your risk of a secondary cancer developing in the area where you had radiation, your risk goes up every 10 years. And again, because I was so young, even my surgeon told me, he's like, I don't know if they'll offer radiation because you're so young. Usually they try to avoid it if they can, because you're hopefully going to be alive for a long time, and your risk, that means, is increasing every 10 years that you're alive. And I just didn't want to live with that time bomb. I knew I was going to be living with the fear of my cancer coming back anyway, because that's just not something that ever goes away. But I didn't want that extra worry. And again, I was really confident in everything I was doing alternatively and in terms of lifestyle changes and the things that I was doing from the conventional world. I was really confident in those. So that's what I did. I did my year of Herceptin, and now I've been on tamoxifen for about 3 years, 2.5 years. So I had the lumpectomy. I did 1 round of chemo, and then I did Herceptin, which is, again, it's an intravenous drug. So I was still going to the hospital, to the chemo suite every 3 weeks, and did that for a year. And and now tamoxifen. So and then a lot of stuff from the alternative world, which we can get into. But there was a lot.
Let's hear it.
Sure. Okay. So the first thing was lifestyle changes. So that was, I completely overhauled my diet. The major things that I cut out, I was a complete sugar addict before, and I think that actually played a pretty big part for me in terms of root causes. Because that's something that the alternate or the conventional world doesn't tell you. My oncologist said, it could be any number of many things that you have no control over, so don't worry about it. There's no way to know how you got it. And that just never sat right with me, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result. So if you get cancer once and then you don't change anything about your lifestyle, about the environment in your body, obviously something in your environment, external and internal, caused your cancer. Unless you're one of the people who has a genetic, predisposition, but only 5 to 10% of cancers are genetically caused. The other 90 to 95% are other factors. And scientists are discovering that up to half of those 90 to 95% can be prevented with lifestyle changes. So in my mind, I was thinking, how is this possible that you're saying that there's nothing that I could have done to prevent it, and there's no reason to dwell on why, when for me, I was like, no, I want to know so that I can fix those things so that it doesn't come back, because I don't ever want it to never want to have to go through that again. I started digging for what my root causes could be. And I think sugar was definitely one of them. And I was eating candy probably every day, and I was having some sort of like sugary treat, like muffins or cookies or ice cream or something like that every single day. So sugar was like the number one thing that I discovered I needed to cut out, because cancer cells just need so much more sugar than our healthy cells do. And there are arguments that say like, well, if they don't get their energy from sugar, then they'll get it from somewhere else. But my mentality was, why am I going to give it something that could help it? Right? Why? Like, I'm just going to avoid it because it's easy enough to do. And I don't want to give it anything that is going to help it. So I cut out sugar completely. I cut out most dairy. Sometimes I'll have some goat cheese or something like that, but cow dairy in particular has some harmful proteins, casein in particular, that is really, we can't digest it and it becomes carcinogenic. So dairy, especially cow dairy, was a big one. And processed grains, wheat, any, like white flour pasta, all that sort of thing. And I do, and any refined or processed grains, really, because you take all the nutrients out of it, and then it's just like a kick to your blood glucose levels, which again, we want to keep nice and low and even, and within normal range. We don't want any huge spikes. So that was the first thing. And then, other normal things that come in, like exercise and mental health. I started meditating and really trying to deal with my stress. I learned that my body, I did a test called Nutrition Genome, which is all about your epigenetics. And I had me less able to deal with stress hormones. So I experience more symptoms of stress, and my body goes into a stress response much more easily, which because I did have a very stressful couple of years leading up to my diagnosis. So how to sort of calm my stress and deal with it and let it crop up, and anxiety too. So meditating was a huge thing. And then I just did everything I could find that was available to me from the alternative world. So I did vitamin C IVs, I did mistletoe injections, which I still do both of those. I did B12 injections for a while, glutathione, which is like a master antioxidant, basically. I did IVs called artesunate, which was developed for malaria, but it's basically helps to get rid of viruses and parasites and cancer cells in your bloodstream. I did those. I did hyperthermia, which is cancer doesn't like heat. It's funny. It likes inflammation, but it doesn't like heat. So hyperthermia heats the internal temperature of, you can do whole body hyperthermia, but here in Canada, we only have localized. So they put like a big like water pillow almost right where my tumor was, and heat up the area. They keep the skin cold, but they heat it up inside. It's fascinating how it happens. And what it does is it draws any natural substances you're taking or any drugs. People often time it with their chemotherapy. I timed it with my Herceptin. So the heat actually draws natural substances and drugs to the area. So you get a higher concentration of those cancer-killing substances in the area where the tumor was. It also weakens the cell walls of cancer cells. And so those substances can get in more easily and destroy the cells more effectively. And then if there are young cancer cells in the area, it can actually completely kill them. So I did hyperthermia and timed that with my Herceptin, and I would get a vitamin C IV at the same time. Vitamin C, for those people who don't know, vitamin C IVs in high concentrations, like 50 grams. It's a pro-oxidant versus an antioxidant. So it creates hydrogen peroxide in your body, and your cancer cells don't have the enzyme that breaks that down, and your healthy cells do. So it doesn't affect your healthy cells, and it does actually damage the cancer cells. So that's pretty interesting. So yeah, I did all of that. I did, infrared saunas, colonics, lots of detoxing. I did, every supplement that you could imagine at one point or another. There was just a lot of stuff, as much as I could reasonably, honestly, probably more than I could reasonably do. If I had been working at the same time, I would not, it was a full-time job. If I'd been working at the same time, I would not have been able to do it. But I spent, a good 8 months doing nothing except for reading and researching and learning, and then implementing like all of that stuff. And these clinics where I could do these various things were far apart. So I was driving, sometimes an hour to get to whatever clinic had the hyperthermia machine, and all sorts of stuff. So, so I did. And then most of that now, I'm 3 years out now. So I still do one vitamin C IV a month, and I do mistletoe injections every week. Mistletoe is slightly toxic, not too much though, but enough to stimulate your immune system. So I do that still. And that's sort of just like my maintenance doses for those. So it was a lot. It was a wonderful learning experience. And I came out feeling healthier than I have in my whole entire life. So that's been a gift for sure.
Wow. That really is a lot. But definitely
it's a lot.
you took really good care of yourself. At the end of the day, I really like how you said that you researched, you went by, everything was you. You also said where you did nothing for almost 8 months, but don't say you didn't do anything. You took care of yourself. You had your back. And
Yes, that's true.
that is the most beautiful thing ever. Like, even the way you're saying it, the kind of energy you're radiating right now at this point, is just the result of that.
It's so true. It is.
It is.
It absolutely is.
It actually goes into my next question. How did you manage professional life and, the treatment?
Yeah. So I was, lucky in that. So my job is quite flexible. I'm a teacher, but I do mostly covering like maternity leaves and sick leaves and stuff like that. So it's not permanent, or even just like day to day. If someone has an appointment, I can cover them. So it's very flexible. It was really easy for me to just sort of put that on pause. It's all done online, all of the booking and hiring for teaching. So I just blocked my calendar off, and I said I'm not available. And there were some principals that I had to tell them what was going on, because I knew them well, and they would sometimes just email me or call me directly to hire me for a day or for a month or whatever. So I had to explain why I kept having to say no. So it was this interesting, and also when I was first diagnosed, I was in the middle of teaching summer school. So I had to decide whether I thought I could finish teaching, because I had 1 week left, and I loved my class and I didn't want to leave them. And I was diagnosed on a Thursday. And so I said right after school. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go tomorrow, because I need to talk to my principal. I need to, if I'm not going to stay, I need to tell my class, and there's, just things I need to finish up. And I also feel like I needed a distraction that first day. I needed something else to think about. But when and also I think there was a part of me that thought I really did want to finish the week. And there was a part of me that thought that I might be able to, but as soon as I got to school that day, luckily they were just writing an in-class exam all day. So I didn't have to actually teach anything, because I couldn't stop crying. Every 10 minutes I have to just like turn to the wall and like tear up, because I didn't want them to see me crying, obviously. So I knew then that I couldn't keep going, just emotionally. I was not going to be able to do it. And the last week of summer school is particularly intense. I was teaching English as well, grade 12. So it's right before university. So it's a lot of marking. And I knew I couldn't do it emotionally. My principal was really wonderful. She totally understood, of course, and, told me a couple stories of people that she knew who had had breast cancer and were doing great now. So that was really helpful and wonderful. I told my students and tried not to cry, but of course I did. And they were all really wonderful. So I was just really lucky in that everyone that was around me professionally at that time was super understanding and supportive. I know that's not always the case. And then I was able to just, block myself off from work and really just focus on healing. And I know there are people who continue to work throughout treatment, and that's totally valid. Some people are like that. They need that distraction, or they need that feeling of, you're doing something productive and something that you like doing. It helps them to still feel like life is normal during a time where not much feels normal. But for me, I knew, and I think also because even at that time, even right at the beginning, I think I knew intuitively that I was going to be a very active patient, and I was going to be very involved in my own healing. And I think instinctively knew that I just needed to put work and everything else aside. So I was really lucky in that I was able to do that. I got help from my family, and it's funny the way the universe works. I had literally just added a cancer policy to my life insurance about 5 weeks before I was diagnosed. And that policy has to be active for 4 weeks before it's valid. So it was literally like days. So I was able to claim that and actually get a good chunk of money from that, which allowed me to not have to work. So it was just, it was just, now I recognize it as, you know, the universe stepping in and helping me out. But at the time I was like, wow, what a crazy coincidence. Right. But yeah, so that was just incredibly fortunate. I was so grateful for that. And yeah, and then again, because supply teaching, substitute teaching is so flexible, you can work one day a week, or you can work 5 days a week, whatever you're available for. About 8 months later, I was able to, I had done my 1 round of chemo. I was feeling good from surgery. My hair was starting to grow back a little bit. So I just started working, you know, just 1 days a week whenever I felt like, kind of gradually worked my way back up. And it took me a while before I felt like I was, because it's also a mental and emotional thing too. It's not just your physical health. You might feel physically ready to go back to work, but mentally and emotionally, maybe not, because and that's really the lasting toll of cancer. We get, if we're lucky and one of the lucky ones that gets through treatment well and we recover and we're cancer free, the physical effects from treatment and from cancer itself do get better for most of us. But the mental and the emotional impact, it lasts forever. And can take a while sometimes. And I think in our society, there's this idea that we have to keep going, we have to keep pushing. We're more stressed than we ever have been in human history. We work longer, and there's this sense that we've somehow failed if we have to take time off or we have to take care of ourselves. And so I think some people often feel very pressured to go back to work, and it's much before they are ready to. So I think just being really in tune, as in tune as you can be with yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and just really taking your time and being patient and recognizing when you're not ready. And if you have the ability to hold off, to absolutely do that and hold off until you really feel like you're ready to go back. So I was able to do that, which was really wonderful. And I felt so lucky to be able to do that. And yeah. And so I do know that it's not as easy as that for some people. Some people, don't have the luxury of being able to take that time off. But if you can, I highly, highly suggest it, because it's just a lot harder to heal when we're stressed about other things going on in our lives, like work, which is a common stressor. And it's a lot harder to heal too. I feel personally like it's harder to heal when you're not fully focused on that healing. I think it's really important to give your body the space and the time that it needs to heal. So if you can, you should do that.
Definitely. That is the message. We tend to feel that pressure. We shouldn't let the pressure get to us.
Definitely.
I mean, what helps another person may not be the same thing that helps the other person. So everybody has their ways of coping.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So as long
absolutely.
as the goal is to not let that pressure be, okay, I need to take this time out. Means I need to take this time out. There's no two ways.
Exactly. Absolutely.
It shouldn't just fly over your head, should it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes it is something that gets forgotten, that self-care. It's often the first thing that goes out the window when we get stressed, usually, when we're worried about other things. Care for ourselves, tends to be the first thing that gets bumped off. So
yeah, and you got down to doing that as soon as possible, that self-care, that the detection. And talk to us about the detection part, examination part. If you hadn't, what would have happened? Like, you've taken care of yourself so well that, okay, now you noticed. So many people, they just ignore it and have it for months and maybe a year. And then they don't have, doctors can't help them. People who finally figure it. Yeah. Tell us about
That's right. Yeah. Because it's so true. We do. And I think some of it is, I think a lot of it is fear. If you do feel something, or some women even describe just just not even being able to feel a lump or anything, but just having this sense, this knowing that they knew they had cancer, like waking up and being like, I like, just, which is great, like such a wild concept. But now that I understand how strongly the body and the mind is connected, I can totally understand that. But yeah, so because I was young, I mean, obviously I was too young to be getting annual mammograms or anything like that. And I wasn't doing proper self-exams. I'd never really been taught how to do a proper self-exam, which is something that I think needs to change. But I would just kind of, I had heard that, you should get to know what your breasts feel like so that if something changes, you know right away. So I would just kind of have a feel around every couple of months. And I wasn't looking for anything. I was just trying to get to know the terrain of my own breasts and what that felt like. And so, yeah, one day I was just in the shower and I was having a feel, and I wasn't really concentrating or looking for anything in particular because I didn't know what a cancerous tumor felt like. I knew that it might feel hard or that it might feel uneven, but I really, unless you've actually felt it one before, you don't really know what you're looking for. So I just happened to feel, and I was just very lucky. It was right on the outside, on the left. It was so far to the outside of my breast tissue, I could actually press my skin down and I could see it. I could see the lump if I pressed my skin down. Like, that's how close. And so I was just really lucky where it was, because if it had been in towards the center of my breast, it would have been buried, and it would have had to get a lot bigger before I would have felt it. So I was just incredibly lucky where it was, and that I happened to find it while it was still small. And I mean, I've always been one of those people who goes to the doctor for everything. Like I'm a little bit of a worrywart when it comes to my health. So I've lost a few family members to health issues. And so I think that just played into that. And so I've always been that way. Whenever I feel like something's wrong, I'm the person who's at the doctor when they probably don't need to be at the doctor. But hey, in this case, it maybe saved my life. So I was at my doctor just a couple of days later, and I think I did have a sense that it was something that I needed to get checked out. I think I did have that sort of gut feeling that this isn't something that you should leave. Just a couple of days later, I was at my doctor, and she was like, okay, well, it could be anything. It could just be fibrous tissue. It could be, whatever, but let's do an ultrasound and see. So we did an ultrasound, and that came back inconclusive. They said, there's some suspicious characteristics, but not others. Like, for example, it was very mobile, meaning you could move it if you pressed on it. And usually a cancerous tumor latches on really tightly and you can't move it. So something being mobile is usually a sign that it's a cyst or something like that instead. So they said, it has some, suspicious characteristics, but others, it doesn't. So we're not sure. So they suggested doing a biopsy. And so my doctor said, let's do a mammogram first, because the biopsy is not a pleasant experience. So she's like, let's see if we can avoid doing the biopsy. We'll do a mammogram first. So we did a mammogram, and I remember going to the mammogram clinic. It was luckily in the same building as my doctor, but I walked in and they looked at it and they were like, we don't usually do this for people your age. Are you sure this is what your doctor wants done? And I was like, I'm sure. And they're like, could you go back and ask just to make sure? And I was like, okay. So I went back down to my doctor's office and I was like, are you sure this is what, and she was like, yes. And I was like, okay. So I went back upstairs. But it's just, like the disbelief, because someone my age, it's just not expected. But, we did they put like a marker where the lump was, and they took the image, and it was negative. There was nothing in the mammogram. And we could see and the nurse or the technician, I think, obviously recognized that I was really nervous and anxious. And she actually showed me the image in the room, which I don't think they're supposed to do, but she showed me the image and just said, look, I don't see anything. And it all looked white. It all looked the same. She's like, there's the marker. And I was like, is there any way that we just like missed it 'cause it's so far to the outside? And she's like, no, because there's the marker right there. So I know it's in the image and I don't see anything. So like, I think you're okay. And I was like, great. So then, a week later, my doctor got the results. And so I went back in and she said, yeah, it's negative. There's nothing there. But for whatever reason, I could tell she just had this look on her face that she was just unsure and uneasy. And she said, you know what, I'm going to do the biopsy anyway. She's like, just because that's what they recommended in the ultrasound. And I don't even know if she explained it. I think all she said was, we should do the biopsy anyway. I think that's all she said. And, so what I've later discovered is that a lot of young women have dense breast tissue. And so a mammogram, it's like finding a snowball in a snowstorm. It all looks the same. It all looks the exact same. So it's virtually impossible to find a tumor on a mammogram. Not impossible, but it's very difficult to find a tumor on a mammogram with someone with dense breast tissue. It just all looks the same. And that's exactly what it looked like, just all looked like white. So that's why it didn't show up. That's why it was negative, even though I could see it. Like I could literally see the lump with my eyes if I pushed my skin down. And yet the mammogram was negative. So she, for whatever reason, she decided to do the biopsy. So she sent me for a biopsy, and that's what ultimately diagnosed me. But everyone was so like, they had told me that the, mammogram was negative. The guy who came in to do my biopsy was very casual. I think he was like eating a snack, and he was like, oh, I looked at your pictures, your other ultrasound in the mammogram, and looks normal to me, and like it's very mobile, which is usually a good sign. He's like, so I think you're fine, but we'll just do the biopsy anyway, just in case. So it was nice because it meant that for the week that I was waiting for my results, I really wasn't worried. I was not concerned because everyone had said like, it's probably fine. But the result of that was that I was so unconcerned that I went to get my results by myself because I figured that I was fine. And so that's not a good idea. If you're ever going to get biopsy results, take a buddy just in case, because that was, I think, a much more difficult experience for me because I was by myself. I had to drive myself home afterwards, and I was like 30. It was a hospital that was farther away from where I live now, so it was at least a half an hour, and so it was just and you kind of go into shock. Everything just numbs. It's like you have your earmuffs on, like everything is just sort of like dead end, and you're not really listening that well, and you're not really taking in what they're saying. It would have been helpful to have somebody else there, be able to drive me home and be able to listen to what they were telling me. So that's what was, that's ultimately what diagnosed it. And then my family doctor afterwards, I actually was the one who told her because I went to her for my pre-op physical, and she was like, oh, is this pre-op for the biopsy? And I was like, no, I already had the biopsy. And she was like, oh, like what's this pre-op for then? And I was like, a lumpectomy because I have cancer. And she hadn't gotten the results yet. I don't know why, but she hadn't gotten the results yet. And she was so upset. And she was like, I'm so sorry. She's like, I should be the one, comforting you and supporting you. She's like, but usually I have time to read the results and, accept it and then, deliver them. And she's like, I've known her for so long. She's been my family doctor for a really long time. And she's like, I know you so well, and you have no risk factors. And she said, I don't even know why I sent you for the biopsy. She was like, a lot of times, because of your age and your limited risk factors and the negative mammogram, she's like, I would have said, just come back in 6 months. A lot of times, she's like, that's what I would have done. She's like, in my mind, that is what I should have done. She's like, I don't even know why I sent you for the biopsy. She's like, but so again, I feel like that was just sort of some universal intervention saying, making her feel like, okay, she's got to go for it. And so that was it. So I think I had my surgery a week and a half after I got those results. It was really fast. And then after that, I met my oncologist a few weeks later, and we started on all of that. And in the meantime, I already had a naturopath. I'd been seeing her for just serendipitous. I had already, been seeing her for a couple of months prior to my diagnosis, because I was diagnosed in July, and that previous winter I had gotten sick like 8 times. Like I would have a cold for 2 weeks, and then I would feel better for 2 weeks, and then I'd get another cold. And it was just a constant cycle. And I was like, this isn't normal. This isn't good. So, and I think that was a hint as well at what was going on. So my immune system was busy with other stuff and it was trying to, kill cancer. And so I had already been seeing her to kind of start supporting my immune system and improving that. And she just happens to be a naturopath who specializes in oncology. A lot of her practice is with cancer patients. And I didn't even know that at the time when I picked her from the list of doctors who were near me. But yeah, I just, again, you make luck, serendipity, or just, someone looking out for me and saying, you're going to need her. You're going to need her in the future. So go with her. So I was able to really make a very seamless transition into that integrative route. I didn't have to take time to find somebody. I just called her and I was like, okay, this is what's happened. We're changing gears. We're going to still focus on immunity, but we're also going to be focusing on, a lot of other stuff. So, pretty much right from the beginning, I was, able to take that dual path, with alternative and conventional. And, and then the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, you just answered everything so precisely and briefly. Like I'm able to revisit this entire thing with you,
Yeah.
The way you're narrating to me, I'm able to see how each and every step is taking by one after the other. So, well, that says so much about your personality. So organized and so, this has to be, like, I already, it's just coming through.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely how I am.
But anyway, coming to my next question. How did your family, how was this disclosed to them? How did they take it? How
so
things turn out for them? Yeah. And who was your caregiver?
So because I was by myself, I had the unhappy job of having to tell literally everyone that I knew, because, and I obviously still remember that drive home from the doctor, from getting my results. And I remember thinking to myself, I am the only one in the world right now, other than my doctor, who knows this. The people who love me the most in the world, who know everything about me, don't know this yet. And it was the craziest feeling, just being alone in that knowledge. And it was, I feel like it was a good thing on some level, because I did get sort of that time completely by myself to sit with it a little bit and not be concerned. I'm a recovering people pleaser, I like to say. So I'm always more concerned about how other people are feeling as opposed to how I'm feeling. And I think, again, that was another factor for me in developing cancer in the first place. Yeah.
The story of our lives.
So I know, right? Oh my gosh, especially as women, I feel like. But so I actually got that moment to sit with it myself and not be taking in anybody else's reaction, because nobody else knew yet. So nobody else was reacting to the news yet. So it was a really crazy feeling, though, knowing that, and like I tell him everything, my partner, I tell him everything. And so it was just a really weird feeling, being like, he doesn't know this. And I remember getting home and sitting in the driveway, and I knew I had to go upstairs and tell him. And I really didn't want to. It was obviously, it's just when you have news that is going to just destroy somebody, and someone you love so much, it's the most difficult thing to have to do. So I went upstairs and I told him, and I think he already kind of suspected, because he had texted me right away to say, like, how did it go? And I was like, we'll talk when I get home. Like, I didn't want to text him and tell him that information. And so I think he had already kind of thought that maybe something was wrong, because I wouldn't tell him in text. And I said, I have breast cancer. And then I think the first thing I said was, which is really sad now to think about, but I said, I'm sorry that you love me because you're going to have to go through this with me. And I'm really sorry. That really sucks. And of course he was like the best. He was wonderful. And he was like, don't be ridiculous. Like, of course I'm going to be here for you. And I'm not sorry that I love you. He was wonderful. So I was 28 and he is 3 years younger than me. So he was only 25 and yeah. And that's a lot and to handle. It was a lot for me to handle. And he just was a champ. He was amazing, like just absolutely amazing. Just nothing ever except for support. He never complained. He never, said, he never even said, I wish this wasn't happening. He was just like, I mean, obviously he wished it wasn't happening to me, but like, he never made me feel like, I think I put guilt on myself, but he never put any kind of guilt on me. He was just absolutely amazing, just amazing. And then his parents live just down the street from us. We're pretty close. So I was like, I need to go and tell somebody else now. Like, I was like, I can't have, it's too heavy for us to just have this, just us. So I was like, let's go tell them. So we went over, we told them. And then my mom lives about an hour and a half away from me. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to go right then and tell her. And it wasn't something that I wanted to call her and tell her. So we went up, I think the next day we went up and told her. And I just felt in your family and friends is patient guilt. Like there's just, and I think it's, again, for someone who's a people pleaser, it's because you feel like you're doing this to them, even though you're not. Like, it's not your fault, but you have that feeling that you are doing this to them. And my mom has not had the easiest. She's had to take care of a lot of people in her life. My dad had cancer when I was a kid, and she had to take care of him. And then her mother. Just a few years before that, she lived to be 100. So she just had a lot of health issues as she got older. So my mom, she lived with them for a while. My mom took care of her for years before she went to a nursing home. And then her husband had some major health issues 3 years ago. So she had been taking care of him. And so I was like, oh my God, now she's going to have to take care of me again. It's just somebody else. So I think I felt the worst about her because I just felt like she just so didn't deserve it. She just has had to deal with so much in her life. She just didn't deserve it. Nobody deserves it. But everyone was really, I mean, there was obviously initially like shock and tears, but everyone pretty quickly kicked into like, you're going to be fine. We're going to do this, and my mom is like me, and she just went into like research mode right away as well. And like, she has helped me so much in terms of finding research and information and stuff as well. So yeah, she just kind of kicked into that gear, and really it's brought me and all of my people closer together. And I think that's one of the, and I know some people are probably going to think that I'm crazy when I say this, but I've come to recognize that there are a lot of gifts in cancer. And maybe everyone wouldn't call them gifts. They might call them, lessons or, positives or something like that. But I like to say that they're gifts because gifts are unexpected sometimes and you don't know what they're going to be. And, you open them like, what is this? And why? But then you open it up and you unpack it, and there's actually there was some good stuff in there for me. And I think, one of those gifts is that I was brought really, it's like so much closer to Jesse, my partner, and to my mom and my stepdad and my sister, and my in-laws. We were all, you form a team. I say all the time, cancer is a team sport. Like, it really is. You have to have that team around you, and or it just makes it so much easier if you do. And they were just a fantastic team. They were so supportive, so wonderful. And I would not have gotten through it nearly as well as I did without them. That is for sure. That's for sure.
Again, home team and the hospital team. You had both.
And exactly. Both you have your home team and your away team. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Both
yeah,
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. You have your healthcare team and then you have your support team. And
yep. And they come together. That's the best part. They come together without them knowing it.
that's right. They do.
So that's the
Yeah,
best part.
absolutely. They do. They really do. Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important. Yeah, that's the best part. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's really important to trust your healthcare team just as much as you trust your home team too. Yeah, you have to really find those people that you know are gonna yeah be on your side, and that you trust their opinions and you trust their knowledge. And yeah, it's important to like your doctors. It is. I feel that way anyway.
Yeah, I was just going to tell that trust, that reliability, that no, this person has my
Yeah.
back, maybe as much as I have my own
Yes.
back, or even more at times. You know,
Or even more. Yeah. Sometimes.
that's
Yeah, for sure.
and at times when I mean, we question our own selves, we question our own belief system. They're there to remind us that no, this is the person that you are. Don't let this get to you. You know.
That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, because we lose sight of that sometimes, and we really do need that reminder. Yeah, absolutely.
We tend to forget it. We tend to I mean,
Yes,
situation that we're in we tend to get carried away by our own emotions at times, and that reminder is
we
so
do. Yeah.
strong. They remind us of the person that we truly are, and that we can get through with this.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and I think there are some moments in like when I had the one like the one round of chemo, it was way harder than I expected it to be. I had a particularly bad reaction to it. I was in the hospital the next day because my arms were numb and my heart was like beating. I have a kind of an irregular heartbeat anyway. It skips a beat sometimes, and my heartbeat was just like racing. And I was they have such strong meds now. Most people don't actually end up, we have this image of the cancer patient as like, sick and throwing up everywhere after chemo. But the meds they have now are so good and so strong that a lot of women don't, or I say women because of breast cancer, but a lot of patients don't, they feel nauseous, but they don't actually throw up. But I was sick within like a half an hour of getting home, and it lasted for days. And it was just so hard. And I was like, how is it this hard, this one round? And it really messed with my head. I wasn't prepared for the mental and emotional side effects of chemo. We're so focused on, and I think that's just true of cancer treatment in general. We're so focused on the physical, we just want to get this thing out, and and it's totally normal and understandable. But we are not well prepared, I don't think, for the physical and the mental impacts of treatment. And I felt like not myself at all, which was really hard for me. And I was like, is this going to like, am I going to feel this way forever? I literally asked Jesse that. I was like, am I going to feel this way forever? Like, am I going to feel this crazy forever? And he was like, no, it'll go away. So, like, this is not you. It's just the drugs. Like you'll be back to yourself eventually. So, just having someone there to tell you, like this will pass, was so vital, so important. Yeah, because I was in a place where I couldn't remind myself of that. I was like, this is going to be forever. This is my life now. Great, get used to it. But it's just how you're feeling in the moment, negative.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having someone to like pull you back up from that is super helpful. Yeah.
Yes. Tell us how you reacted, or what was going through your mind when you first got that report that said, okay, now you're cancer free.
Oh, so it would have been, I guess my first MRI, my like 1 year MRI, because I don't do mammograms now because a negative result will never mean anything to me because of my first experience with the mammogram being negative. I'm never going to trust a negative mammogram. So I was like, it's not going to help me at all. So I do MRIs instead, and I'll probably switch to ultrasound soon. But anyway, so yeah, it was my 1 year MRI, and it came back totally normal. And, it was just this, I don't know if you've ever had this, you probably had this experience, but when you don't really realize how heavily something is weighing on you until it's lifted. And it was just this amazing feeling of lightness and hope. I think that, my life would be able to, there's no going back to normal, to like the way that it was before. Like your life is forever changed after a diagnosis. But it gave me a lot. It was the first sort of, because I was just in my own little world for like that whole first year. I was so focused on researching and learning, and I was so focused on, all the, like every day I had a routine, I would meditate and I would exercise, and I was doing coffee enemas every day at that point, which is like helping with detoxing and things like that. And I was juicing every day, and I had this like huge smoothie I would make every day. So all this stuff took like all my time. And then I would have a ton of appointments, my naturopaths, hyperthermia, Herceptin, I was going all over. And so it had just been totally consumed. My whole life had just been consumed with cancer for that whole year. And it was just the first indication that at some point I was going to be able to have something in my life other than cancer. And it was just a really wonderful feeling. And it's something, and it's interesting because this year it's been 3 years now. And so my MRI this year, and I think I probably have felt this way every year, but I didn't recognize it, or at least I've gotten to know myself very well in the last 3 years, and I've become very in tune with like my body and my emotions and my mental state. And I think probably I did feel this way before with the other MRIs, but I just didn't recognize it yet. But this year I felt the initial sort of relief and lightness. And then I felt this sadness, and I clocked it, and I was like, that's weird. Why do I feel sad? And I just started crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And I was trying to convince myself that I was crying because I was happy. And part of it was that, but I had enough emotional intelligence about myself at that point to say, there's something else here. Like, you're not crying just because you're happy. You're also sad. And why is that? And I think what it was the recognition that this year it's good news, but I'm going to have to do this every year for a really long time. And every year I'm going to have to go through that same anxiety and the same, leading up to it, that anxiety, and then the anxiety of waiting for your results. And it's just, it's just more, in evidence that your life, it's forever changed. It never goes back to normal. And so, yeah, there was this, it's this weird mix of emotions of like, you're so happy that you're through this really difficult time. And I say this just in case anyone else out there is feeling this way and is like, am I crazy for feeling sad, or angry? But you're not. Like, hopefully the predominant feeling is happiness and relief and excitement. But it's totally okay and totally normal to feel some sadness at this big thing that you're going to still have to continue to deal with and think about for a really long time. And especially breast cancer, because breast cancer can recur, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later sometimes. So it really is, it's just something that's like a ticking time bomb always in the back of your head. So yeah, there was this little bit of sadness too. But I think as long as most of the time you can stay focused on the positive, and you can feel happy and appreciative for where you are, because that's the other thing, the sadness or the fear or the anger, it also makes you appreciate the moments when you don't feel that. It makes you appreciate the moments when you feel really happy and confident and positive. And the goal is obviously to feel that way most of the time, and to do as much as you can to feel that way most of the time. So yeah, predominantly excitement and relief and lightness and happiness. But yeah, a little bit of this like odd sadness too. And I remember feeling that way after I was done with Herceptin, people are like, are you excited to be done treatment? You've been going every day or every 3 weeks for a year. Are you excited to be done? And I was like, yeah, I'm excited, but I'm also not. I'm also really scared to be done treatment because, you feel confidence in like this drug that you're getting that has been really effective for other women, and you're seeing your doctor every couple of months, and you're seeing nurses every 3 weeks in the chemo suite, and you're getting blood tests done all the time. And so you just feel like you're really being taken care of and you're really on top of things, and it gives you a lot of confidence. So then all of a sudden, all that goes away. It's literally like, your last one is done, you ring the bell, and then that's it. And like, okay, we'll see you in 6 months. And you're kind of like, what, 6 months? So yeah, it's, I think anything to do with cancer has a really crazy mix of emotions. It's like some good, some bad, and that is completely and totally normal. Yeah. Yeah. So it's,
Absolutely.
it's a feeling that's really difficult to describe. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's, yeah.
And my final question to you, what do you have to everybody out there watching this video, your one takeaway message, words of wisdom in a line or short and sweet, whatever? What do you have to say? Caregivers, survivors, patients, doctors, everyone who's watching this video, what does Rebecca have to say?
I think there's two things. I think the first thing is that it's so important to be an active patient. It really is. And whether you're taking an integrative route or a conventional route, you really need to be active. You have to ask questions. If something doesn't feel right, explore more. And for doctors who have patients who are like that, because I know I was not an easy patient. I questioned things a lot. I pushed back a lot, but it ultimately got me to a place where I felt like I made every choice right. I feel like, for me. And that's really, really important, to have confidence in the choices that you made. It's so important. So I think for the doctors out there who have maybe a patient who is like me and is not the easiest, just, appreciate, that what they're going through, and why they're asking these questions, and be supportive of that. Encourage them to do whatever they need to do to be confident about the decisions that they're making. And for patients themselves to be super active. And then I think the other thing that's really important is you really need to get to know yourself, and cancer is a really wonderful opportunity to do that. That's one of the other gifts that cancer has given me, is that I've just gotten to know myself so well. I've gotten in touch with my intuition. I've developed this connection with myself, and I feel like with the universe. I call it the universe. Some people, say God or angels or whatever. But and that really guided me in all of my decisions, and in a lot of the hardest, most difficult parts of this journey. I always could rely on my intuition, and it's guided me right every single time. So develop that connection with yourself, and trust in yourself, and confidence in yourself, and just stick to what feels right to you. Because if you make a decision for somebody else, you'll end up regretting it. If you make a decision for you, even if it doesn't turn out the way you want it to, you'll regret it way less if you made that choice for yourself than someone else.
That is so true. That is so true. Like, I cannot agree with you more. It is so true what you just said, because you have to make those decisions for yourselves. In a situation like cancer, all of a sudden, so the doctor puts forth so many things where you have to make decisions, and you're like,
that's right.
Okay, now what do I do? And you're confused. And that is where awareness comes in. You spoke about that as well. Organizations that give out that awareness, and what we're doing right now. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
All of it plays a big role in getting that final outcome, and getting that major outcome out there.
That's right. Yeah, because there is a lot of stuff that, even if you do decide to take a completely conventional route, and you take everything that they offer you, there's still so much you can do from the alternative world that helps make those treatments more effective, that helps to decrease your side effects, that just gives you a better quality of life while you're going through those treatments. And then risk reduction for a recurrence, that there's not a lot in the conventional world that they do for risk reduction. They kind of just say, okay, we'll give you a scan once a year and let us know if anything feels weird and changes. And that has never sat right with me, because shouldn't we be trying to prevent something from feeling weird instead of waiting until it feels weird, right? So that's where the alternative world can really come in and help with those lifestyle changes and some supplements to support your immune system, and, digging to see what maybe were potentially the root causes of your cancer so that you can address them and fix them. So yeah, being just aware that those things are out there too. Even if you do take a completely conventional approach to treating your cancer, there is just a whole world of stuff that you can do afterwards to prevent a recurrence or reduce your risk of getting a recurrence. And I think that is what helps so much with the mental and emotional health after you're done treatment, because that fear is always there, and it can be so visceral and so strong and so hard to deal with. But if you feel like you are taking steps to improve your health and reduce your risk, that it's what allows me to live my life every day, not completely in fear. Like, I have a moment almost every day where I like think about it, and I'm afraid about anytime you have an ache or a pain or anything, you're like, oh my God. Yeah, you do there. If you can take lots of steps to make yourself as healthy as you possibly can, you're improving your chances of never getting cancer again. And you're also just improving your quality of life right now, mentally and emotionally, because you won't be nearly as stressed and worried and scared.
Yes, right. Rebecca, I cannot thank you enough for being here, taking the time out, and sharing your story with us. There were so many things that I did not know myself that I got to know. So I can only imagine the kind of questions people who are already going through this would actually know. Yeah, thank you so much with us. Thank you so much for having this talk and sharing all the information, sharing something so personal that you went through.
Absolutely.
It takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. You are one strong person.
Thank you. I think it's really important. I think so I started a blog, Arenda blog, and a Facebook group that supports people going through cancer, Arenda Cancer Community on Facebook. And I think for me, that has brought so much meaning and positivity to my experience with cancer, being able to help people through my experience. It takes a lot of the anger and the bitterness out of being diagnosed. It takes away a lot of that, like, why me? Like, why now? And it gives meaning to it. Because I feel like that's one of the main reasons why we go through challenges in our life, is so that we can grow, and then we can help others to do the same because of our experience. Because otherwise, what's the point? Like, what's the point of all this really hard stuff that we have to go through if we can't help other people afterwards? So, so that's why I started Arenda, because it was my opportunity to help people and share my experience. So thank you for having me on here, because I love to do this. I love to share and help other people. Yeah.
It's always got to do with paying it forward. Always got to do with paying it forward. Yes. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you. It has been such a pleasure. I've made a new friend, I believe. And also,
absolutely.
And also, like I said at the beginning, it is an honor to have spoken to you, to have known that, okay, there's such a person who's gone through this, and they have come out of it stronger and better, and much, much more in connection with themselves. Wow. Thank you so much. Definitely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it has been great. It has been great. Have a great day ahead. Bye. Take care. Keep inspiring all of us with this work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will. Thank you. Bye-bye.